like, do you remember when everybody put a filter on everything?
Everything.
And it was the only thing you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, you take a photo with your phone, you put a filter on it.
Mm-hmm. But the built-in ones.
Yeah. Were you an X Pro 2 guy?
No, I never had an X Pro 2. I had a couple X100s.
No, I mean the filter.
Oh. I thought you were thinking
back up.
Fuji.
No, yeah, back up.
Man, I can't remember what my go-to was. It was probably dog shit, though. Should I not curse on this? Or is the audience?
You can curse. You just can't say the C word.
Oh, really? That's where you draw the line?
Crud.
Dude,
I got grounded for saying crap once. My parents, they certainly raised me in a God-fearing way.
Yeah.
And we were also in Alabama, to be fair, so that was probably a different standard. But yeah, I remember I ran into a spider web. You know those garden spiders, those like big black and yellow ones?
Scary.
It was in the web. I ran into it. It like falls. I like freaked out. I was like, crap. And my mom was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you can't say that. Like, sorry, like go to your room. Like, and I don't remember what, I mean, the general was like, you can only read books, which is tough. If you read the stars, oh no, bad news, right?
Yeah, she buried you for that one.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Betty did the thing. All right, dude, I wrote you an intro.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You ready?
Okay.
You ready for this? Standing at 6'9", Ben Carter is the tallest glass of Southern kindness this side of the Mississippi. Partner and director of Whatnot Films, Ben has worn hats as director of photography, colorist, father of dog, and leader of men, bringing to life projects for organizations like Toyota, the NHL, the Carolina Panthers, and Lexus. Ben and the Whatnots have never sacrificed kindness, creativity, or excellence on set. Whether you're goofing around or goofing off, Ben is the right guy to goof. Please help me welcome Ben Carter. This is Cruise Control.
Wow. I've never had an intro written about me in my 39 years, so it's a big moment.
Well,
I think we should just end it because I'm not going to top that.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Squarespace, Blue Apron.
Yeah, thank all your sponsors and then cut.
Yeah, so. Thanks to whatever. But yeah, dude, thank you for being here. We are going to talk about stuff. I'm going to start episode 2. I'm going to start every podcast the same way, the same question, and that is, what is your favorite crafty snack?
Oh, man. Coffee, like, I know that's separate, but I have very few demands. I wouldn't even call this a demand because that's kind of a
Yeah, what goes on your writer,
douchey
your director
thing.
writer?
No, I just have to have sometimes I know the location doesn't allow for legit coffee, and that's fine. I'm not going to be a snob about it. If there's a Keurig, fine. I'm happy. But I just love having it. Like, I don't... Crafty for me... If I'm eating crafty, the day is wearing on me. Because I usually, like, once we get into it, I don't eat a lot on shoot days because I don't know, especially doing arm car work. Well, no, it's not the focus, but it's just like... You know, I'm taking Dramamine, and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like,
you're taking downers.
Yeah, I'm hitting downers hard, so I'll hit uppers to balance myself. But no, just coffee is my thing. Like hot black coffee is it for me. So, yeah, I mean, I've been known to grab a little mini can of Pringles, but that's just when my salts are low, and I got to get, as Eric always says, he's like, you need to go get your salts up. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right.
So it's more of an electrolytes question.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about the Pringles.
Exactly.
What flavor Pringles do you go for?
Oh, just stock.
Stock Pringles?
Stock Pringles. Dude, I don't mess with powdered flavors. I want stock.
Are you aware that the FDA doesn't even consider Pringles a potato chip?
I'm pretty aware of that. Yeah. Just like Oreos have no chocolate and are vegan, but there's no like actual food in them. But it's one of the most brilliant things.
Dude, being vegan's easy.
Yeah, I just eat Oreos and French fries, right?
Double stuff, baby.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Let's talk about how you came up, man. Where did you grow up and how did you get into this industry?
I grew up in Charlotte after coming from Chicago. In a pretty normal family. Like, we're pretty average Americans. I feel like dad was all about sports, and my mom is a super lovely. I always felt like my mom was a suppressed creative in a way. Like, she could play piano and she could sing, and music was a big deal. But I feel like she just never got to explore that side of her of her being. So, but yeah, grew up playing sports and then found music, and that was it for me. Like I was just like done playing sports. So music was what meant the most to me growing up, and the one thing I was actually good at, because I wasn't good at all the other things I sort of pursued.
What were you playing? What sports were you playing?
I was really good at golf when I was young, and I won like some club championships and stuff as like a child, as like an 8, 9, 10-year-old. So this is in the 90s before golf really hit its like big boom with kids. So I snuck in early, got good, and was like, oh, look how good I am. Now, if you put my same self against kids today, I would get dominated. So I feel like I just like eked my way in as a youth and got good at golf. But played a lot of baseball and basketball. I played high school lacrosse and all that stuff. But I was just never like, I'm not competitive. I don't have that like killer instinct. Like I don't see red. I'm just like, oh, all right, well, if you care more than me, and like I don't know. And I'm sure that drove my dad insane, the poor guy. But yeah, just music was what spoke to me. So I started playing piano, and then I played saxophone in the high school or in the middle school band, and then baritone saxophone in the high school band. That shit weighs 70 pounds. It's taller than I am. So
That's why
don't
you're
know
so
why.
jacked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got that Barry sax physique. Woo.
Ooh, wow. This man chiseled.
But then in like 6th or 7th grade, I picked up a guitar and started taking lessons for a handful of years, and then kind of went off on my own and started playing in terrible bands in high school. And yeah, and so that was sort of how I came to be, just in like creative fields in general, was all through music.
Yeah, tell me about your music career, because you didn't have it wasn't like a small blip. You had a very genuine career path.
Yeah, I hated school. I was really bad at school, but I had eked my way into the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, and was struggling, like just struggling so much with paying attention to that sort of stuff, and that's just on me. No excuses there.
You didn't apply yourself, is what I'm hearing.
But I one of my really good friends from high school, and then a guy I had met in college, this guy Chase Holfelder, he was just this great songwriter, and I was just used to being in shitty high school bands, playing like Newfound Glory covers and stuff. And he taught me so much about songwriting and the things that I just hadn't really understood yet. And we cut an EP. And all of a sudden I'm 19 years old, and all these like record labels are emailing me, and I'm like a child, like responding like, So it was a really weird time. And so we signed a record deal, and I got to drop out of college, which was probably the best scenario at that point, just because I just was not good at it. And I went on the road with that band for 7 years. And then I got hired by some other bands after that to continue touring when my band broke up. Spent a year in Nashville writing with other producers and songwriters. Spent a year in LA as a music director on a project that was being developed. And then around like 2010 or so, I kind of burned out, and I was like, I want to go home. So I had spent a good 8 years or so like away from home, just whether on the road or living elsewhere, working on projects, and I've been to every state multiple times, the good, the bad, the ugly, and put a couple records out that are dated nowadays, like they sound very dated, but we wrote those when we were 20, so it's interesting to go back and listen to the music that you were creating for me now 19 years ago. So it's kind of strange.
What kind of music were you making?
We were a pop punk band, like pop rock sort of, we loved Newfound Glory and Saves the Day and Reliant K and a lot of bands like that. I listened to a lot of heavier bands too, so there'd be tiny influences of that leaked in, but not, it was melody driven, vocal driven pop rock. And yeah, and I still listen to a lot of that type of stuff today. Like I clearly have a preference, like big drums, big guitars, but that chorus needs to be catchy as hell, or
pizza and beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude.
So yeah, that was kind of where I found myself for a long time. And that is a savage industry to be a part of, especially when like the business side of it, which has prepared me for filmmaking in a certain way. So I don't regret any of those times, all those years of being super broke and living in a van and hotel rooms, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I spent my 20s living on the road in America, and it changed my life forever. So,
What are some of the main takeaways that shaped you as a person through those experiences?
whew, man, you know, I had to learn at a young age how to take care of myself in a sense. Like I had great support from my parents in the sense of like they supported what I was doing, but you know, there wasn't like a bunch of money hitting the bank account every couple weeks. So I had to figure out how to sustain myself. I mean, if I got in a deep dark place, like they would help me out, you know, for sure. Like if I couldn't pay my phone bill or something, you know, small stuff. But it just taught you to be self-sufficient. It really taught you to you're kind of in survival mode at that level. Like until you have a bus or you have like a regular hotel room every night or like a tour manager that's taking care of you or crew or anything, until you get to that point, like you're completely self-sufficient. It's you and your 3 or 4, hopefully best friends, which in my case, you know, I was touring with my best friends and I got really lucky in that scenario because I met a lot of bands that didn't like each other. So, it teaches you how to survive. But then also like I got to go everywhere in this country as a middle class, you know, white male that grew up in Charlotte. I got to go everywhere in this country and finally start meeting people that were not like me, just because that's where I grew up. Like most of the people looked like me. They talked like me. They act like me. You know what I mean? Like it was something I didn't know I needed. And then so at like 19, 20 years old, I hit the road and I was like, oh, okay, there's a lot out here and I need to absorb this and I need to learn about it. And eventually as you get older, you learn to respect it. And you know, that was super valuable because had I just stayed in Charlotte, I worry that I, you know, just wouldn't have that understanding, because that eventually was a push to travel internationally, was just by traveling in this country. So it's the people you meet, the things you see, the places you go that aren't your little bubble. So that was the big lesson, I think, for me.
In terms of in terms of how you then found like the visual creative side of things, filmmaking or photography, how did you find that? How did you stumble into that?
I 100% owe it to one of my best friends, a guy named Jim Trice. He is arguably one of the best wedding photographers in the Southeast. He's super dedicated, super talented guy, and weddings and fashion are like his thing. He's always been into that. But he was my drummer in my band, and we've been friends since we were 15, 16 years old. And he started shooting as we were touring. So he always had this extra sort of creative outlet. And then as the band kind of we went our separate ways, and he went back to school and I went on tour with other bands. He was really starting to take photography seriously, and he got really good and started booking jobs and weddings, and he made a career for himself after he graduated from school. And so after like my last kind of dead end I hit in the music industry of like, I had this great opportunity and I was living in Los Angeles, and I was going to get to be a part of like developing this new artist for this huge record label with this amazing talent behind it. And I was so excited. And then the people at the label that hired me to be involved got fired. And so everyone under them that they had brought in to help develop this artist just got shit canned.
That sucks.
So I found myself like in LA living with my old manager, like renting a room in his house, just being like, what the fuck am I doing? So I came home, and it was definitely like, I just told this story at his wedding a couple months ago. Like it was the first time I ever got to tell him face to face, and like his family and his parents and like everyone who on his side of things that had affected me throughout my childhood. But I was just really depressed. I came home and I had no music anymore. I didn't have the drive to make music. I didn't have the drive to do anything, to go find a new gig, whatever it was. And I was bartending and just not happy. Like I was just in a really low place. I was probably 28 at this time. And he could see it when we were hanging out all the time. And he was just like, hey man, if you pick up a camera, I will teach you everything I know. And I was super resistant to that. I was like, nah, man, that's your thing. Like, I'm not trying to just like, oh, now that I'm not in the band, Jim's a photographer, I'll just be a photographer. Like, I was like, no way, dude, that's your thing. I'm not trying to step on your toes and whatever, because I'm going to be way better than you. And no,
That's so humble, dude.
Yeah, never.
That was really kind of you.
Yeah, that would never happen. And so he beat me down for months and months. And finally one night, like, I feel like we had a couple drinks. And I was like, all right, fine, give me the fucking camera. So he taught me the side of stills. I started second shooting weddings with him and going on his like fashion shoots and assisting, and then slowly being like, oh, okay, like the process felt similar to making records. Making records takes so much longer, but it was just that quick instant return of like, I have an idea, I want to make something, and then you get that, like, you get it on the screen there and you're like, oh shit, okay. Like it felt familiar, and it was that old process of creating things. And so I ran with it, and weddings were not for me. I don't like that environment professionally. So I sort of went my own way, and yeah, I was a freelance working still photographer for the first 2 or 3 years of my career. So,
yeah. How'd you then evolve into the video side of things?
My current business partner, Eric Bridenstine, who is my, not just producer, executive producer and whatnot, but just like the person that holds up my ability to do any work that I do. He was the director of marketing at the Charlotte Checkers, the American Hockey League team in Charlotte. He had worked at the Hurricanes, and he got this big opportunity to run the marketing department for the Checkers. And so he was one-man band. He put on the show in Arena, making all the graphics. He did all the videos and the editing, and
what a legend.
Crazy amount of work for one person, like insane thinking back on it. But he came to me, and we've been friends since we were 15 years old. And he came to me and he was like, have you ever like shot video? I was like, yeah, I mean, I put my DSLRs and, my 5D Mark II into video mode from time to time because it looks cool. But he was like, well, I have this nonprofit. There was this couple that from Charlotte that had got injured and almost killed in the Boston Marathon bombing. Oh, and he was making a film. The Checkers were putting a night together and raising a bunch of money because they do a ton of philanthropic work. And he was like, I'm going to interview them. I want to shoot some B-roll, do all this stuff, but will you come and just film it? He's like, you're good enough photographer. I feel like you'll nail this. And I'm like, okay. So I shot a little short documentary basically for him that he directed. And it looked like shit, like it was terrible. But it was like such a fun process, like being involved in that. And especially to help these people out who had gone through this super traumatic experience. And so that was it. And then like 3 or 4 months later, he was like, hey, I convinced my boss to hire you. Do you want a job? And I had never had a full-time job in my life. I had, been living on the road. So I took it and I became the in-house filmmaker for the Charlotte Checkers of the American Hockey League, and I know, like, I have this conversation with crew or different collaborators. I feel like I've probably had it with you at some point, but like we all have our different paths into filmmaking. Some people are crew, right? You come up in camera department, you come up in G&E, you come up in whatever, VFX, doesn't matter, anything. Or some people go to film school route. But then there's those of us who are the in-house homies, those of us who had in-house jobs, which to me, like, I can't imagine doing it I would never downplay anyone else's path. But for me personally, I got paid a terrible salary to learn how to make films. And I did every job, pre-production all the way through post myself, horribly. But it was like, I wouldn't trade that for the world either, because I got paid terrible money, but enough to survive and learn how to make films. And obviously I like hockey, so that made it a little easier to like pay attention to the subject matter. So that's how filmmaking came to be, was just one of my best friends, again, see, that's this. All right, here's the common theme. I have great friends that support me, but I guess don't wear my emotions very, I don't hide them well, because I 2 stories now of guys being like, this dude is struggling. I need to help him. So, yeah, 2 of my best friends are the people that put me in the path that I'm on and gave me the initial skills to do what I'm doing. So, dude,
that's huge. And that's kind of a point that stands out to a lot of people about Whatnot specifically, like the thumbprint of Whatnot as a company. And I'm not sure how many people tell you this, and we'll talk about it more, but especially for like me and Jono, right? When we talk about what kind of production company we want Unify to be, we are always pointing at Whatnot, saying like, okay, they put, you know, they put like kindness and the consideration of crew kind of above everything. And like you guys do a very good job at like creating a culture that is 2 thumbs up, and like the people don't feel intimidated by. People feel welcome to DoorDash Krispy Kreme to the sets.
Listen, if you're DoorDash and Krispy Kreme to set, Erica's going to be your best friend.
Yeah, dude.
Immediately.
It works. So anyway, you're doing that well. That's cool. We'll talk more about that later because I want to know how and why that is important to y'all. But in terms of like your personal journey, so from there you started to learn a lot through the Checkers. But were there other people internally at the Checkers, or were you just the only video?
It was just me and Eric. So we were writing ideas and putting them into action, and you know, sometimes having to get higher up permission to make some of these films, because the things we were doing in that world were wildly different. Like Eric has his brain is the most unique thing. Like he thinks in a way that a lot of people don't, especially when it comes to like comedy and writing and filmmaking. He likes some weird stuff, but in a good way. And he has found really good ways, especially in that forum. He found some ways to interject that sense of humor of his into the films we were making. So we tried some really weird stuff, and some of it was really successful and some of it flopped horribly. Like we have this joke where like during the games, you know, like he'd be producing the game and I'd be shooting or whatever, and be like, all right, we worked so hard on this. It's gonna premiere in the arena. It's sold out. Like everyone's gonna love it. And there'd be like crickets during it, and we're all up there going like, are you not entertained? Like we used to joke all the time, and when something would flop, and you know, I get it, that hockey fan is looking for like, you know, chugging guitars and big hits and goals, and we just weren't interested in that. Like the hockey product is there, you know, go on YouTube and watch the highlights and, you know, whatever. Like we did documentary a lot. We told a lot of stories about players that had really interesting stories. Because he was so good at getting them out of people. He has a way of disarming people, where he initially might be a really off-putting person because his personality is so big and his sense of humor is so obscure, but then he can disarm people in a way that like I can't even imagine touching that, because he's just, I mean, you know him, he's a character, right? So he would get these stories out of these players, and we would go tell these really fun, interesting stories, or we would write narrative. You know, I got Thomas Torrey to act in a short that we wrote about a guy that wears a mascot costume of a polar bear to work because he loves the Checkers so much. And it was like this sad, emotional thing, and it flopped horribly. But we were just like, he pitched it to Thomas, and Thomas was like, yeah, I'll act in your thing. And we were like, and we have $200. And Thomas was like, all right, fine, but you know,
you have $200.
But Thomas is a real artist, and so I think he saw that we wanted to make something, and so even though it was silly, probably in context, like he was like, you know what, these guys want to make films, I want to be in films, I want to direct films, whatever, you know, all the things that he's good at. So
you're like self-taught, basically. You didn't have people teaching you like, oh, that's the wrong way. Yeah.
Just the two of us.
Well, how'd you get good?
I don't feel like I'm good yet, but I got better from I have this, I've always been this way with like whatever I'm making. I feel like I'm slightly above average at like watching things that I like and just obsessing over how did they do that. Like, and we all have to do that. That's how you learn if you're a DP, if you're a director, doesn't matter what you make. Like, and so I obsess over things. I get if there's a technique or a feeling that someone can convey via film or a shot or anything. It could be technical, it could be creative, it doesn't matter. I just get obsessed with things, and I will dig to the depths of the internet or talk to the people that I need to talk to find out how they're doing this thing, because I can tell there's a thing and I don't know how to do it. So that's how I got any progress I've had, is just obsessing over that, because I couldn't go on set and like watch good DPs work or watch good directors work and be like, oh, that's how they're lighting this, or that's how the director is working with the talent. Like I couldn't do that because I didn't have a crew background. And eventually I was brought into that fold by some really generous people, and that helped for sure. But yeah, I self-taught YouTube before YouTube was what it is now, you know, where every guy with a mirrorless camera is like an educator on YouTube, like digging for that stuff. So, and then trial and error. I made so much garbage. I made a ton of garbage, and I value that garbage a lot because we even talk about it to this day. The biggest job I've ever done doesn't matter. We always say as a group, like when we sit back and look at a finished job, commercial, doc, whatever, I can pick out my couple huge mistakes that I know I made, and I'll never make those again. And maybe you don't see them in the film, but I know they're there, and I'll never do that again because I fucked up on something. So, yeah.
Well, you self-taught your way into being a really good DP. That was my first experience with you. Was you as a DP and seeing your work, and I was like shook. I loved it, and then learning you're a colorist too. That was also like pretty mind blowing because I'm like, oh, this dude shoots and colors, like, you know.
But I couldn't afford colorists.
Yeah, it's fair.
So someone's got to do it, you know. Like,
yeah, you colorists are all too expensive. But yeah, dude, no, you killed it. Well, then you stayed in that world for a while. How did Whatnot become a thing, and then why directing?
Yeah. So the job at the Checkers went away because we wanted to build a commercial production company, and they were supportive of that. And we were going to kind of do it under their umbrella and start another company. And so we were like, yeah, you know, you don't have to pay us. You can take our benefits away. Like, we want to do this the right way. If we don't make money, we don't get paid. And they were all on board until one day they just weren't on board, and they were like, get the fuck out. So we got shown the door on my birthday.
When's your birthday?
April 6th. So we got shown.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it, but no. Yeah, honestly though, like career-wise, it was the best thing that could have ever happened because it was a rug pull. It was, but we knew it was a possibility that like they wouldn't want to do this, even though they told us they wanted to. So we were shown the door. We walked out and we started Whatnot the next day, and with no clients, we didn't have a camera. I didn't have a computer. I had nothing.
Oh, wow.
And so Zach Whiteside, being the fucking homie that he is, gave me his camera to go out and do a short doc that Eric scored through a contact of his for like a nonprofit or something. So like a week later we were shooting. And, you know, thanks to people that are generous, Zach Whiteside gave me that C300 and I went and shot a thing. So that's how it started, because we had a plan and someone else decided that wasn't the plan anymore. But we got going, and at that point I wanted to be behind the camera. Like, I just felt most comfortable there. I had been behind the camera in the stills world. That was at that time my favorite part of the process in my in-house job was shooting and the color grade. Those are the parts that really spoke to me the most. So I got obsessed and just tore work apart and tried to find out how people were doing this, what are they using, how are they doing it, where are they putting the lights, how are they moving the camera, just obsessed. And so did that for the first 3-ish years that Whatnot was a company. And then just sort of found myself having things to say creatively that weren't the DP's responsibility necessarily. Not that those lines aren't blurred all the time, but I was so involved in pre-production and so involved in post, and it just started to feel like being behind the camera was a distraction, but I was never going to be able to do either job well, because directing and DPing is tough. Like, some people do it really well. I think I do it okay at best. Like, Bernardo Marentes is a great DP director. He does a great job at that. I have no idea how he does it. But I just felt like our first big car commercial, I direct DP'd, and I just looked back on it and I was like, man, if I had a DP, they could have caught these details that I missed out on. Or if I had just directed this, maybe I would have been able to change the narrative in a way that I wanted to, or try different things. So yeah, just around 2020, like late 2019, early 2020, I just was like, I'm going to give this a go. Like I remember telling Eric and Erica, like, let me experiment with this for 12 months, 18 months. And if it's not going well, I will shut up and fade into the background and get behind the camera. And we'll work with directors that know what they're doing. And they were supportive, and, you know, that was sort of how it happened. But yeah, I just never felt like I could do either fully to my ability. So by doing both, I'm not a good multitasker. I'm a very, like, I get an idea and I have to focus on that. And then like, oh shit, I forgot to do this with the lighting. Ugh, well, we got to roll. So it felt sloppy and I didn't like that.
Yeah. What are the important points that stand out to you as a director? You're a director versus a DP, right? So you have to focus on a different set of skills. You have to have a different type of communication. What are the things that are important to you that make you feel like you can step in as a director and be more effective than as a DP?
Well, working with good DPs. As soon as I started working with some really, really good DPs, I was like, oh shit, I'm not good. Like, you know, like, I mean, being honest.
Yeah. I mean, we know some really, really good DPs.
We know some good
like,
DPs.
Dude, I could be the worst director ever and just like have them carry me.
And you know, like I was getting better every project, but yeah, once I really got to like sit down and work with a really solid DP, that made me feel better about this decision to kind of try this out. But no, I think for me, it's and this is hard to do because like some projects are in a world that I am obsessed with and I love. And I, you know, if it's cars and racing and the things that I've been interested in since I was a kid, like I think enthusiasm is the most important thing. And we try to remind, like between myself and Erica and Eric, you know, if like when I've got my two people there and I'm the director and we walk on set, like we try to make a conscious decision, like the enthusiasm that we take into this job will spread to the crew. It will spread to the agency, to the client, the people that are paying us to do this. It'll spread to the talent, whatever, you know, the guy who's unlocking the gate at the racetrack, whatever it might be. We try to remember that and we try to bring that to the table. But I think on the directing side, that's important because if I'm trying to convey ideas to crew or to talent and I'm not excited about that idea, like how are they going to be like, especially with talent? Like I work with a lot of athlete talent sometimes and they're so afraid of being made to look stupid. That's their number one thing. They walk on set and they're like, oh, going to be some kooky commercial where they make me look like a dope. Fair. That is fair. But I've been working with athletes for so long. I just know like, if you're excited about the idea and you're confident in it and you can convey that to them, they'll trust you. Same thing with crew, with DPs, with G&E guys, with camera department, doesn't matter. Like if you can convey what seems like a crazy idea confidently and with enthusiasm, I think that's worth so much. Like technically I am not anywhere close to the best director. I'm sure some directors would come on my sets and go like, geez, this guy is a mess, but like I want to be excited about the things I make, and they're not always exciting things. You know, sometimes agency creative may not excite you, but I'm still going to show up and I'm going to let that sort of subtle enthusiasm kind of go throughout the crew and the client and the agency and the talent. So
yeah, that's huge, man. I mean, and that enthusiasm does spread. Like I said, it's a big thumbprint of whatnot.
I mean, I have my moments, don't get me wrong. Like working on set is stressful and we all know it. But I think that having Eric and Erica is so important to me because, like Erica will, I mean, it's no secret, but she is my partner of almost 20 years. And if I'm taking a dive in my mood or something because things aren't going our way or whatever it might be, she's really quick to remind me that's not the energy that we put out to the people that we're so lucky to have hiring us. And your crew is going to see you act sad or bummed that this didn't go your way. And like, that doesn't motivate people to want to do their best. So,
yeah, That's when she busts out the salts.
She busts out the Pringles and a cup of coffee, and she's like, eat, drink, and get back at it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess everything's fine. So I just, I get emotional. It's an emotional job sometimes, but
it should be.
Yeah.
It should be. That's amazing, dude. Talk to me about that journey of directing in terms of like what was where you were like, oh, dude, like this is kind of a big deal that I'm directing this. And then is there also a project where you're like, yo, I kind of killed that?
Oh man, yeah. So for me, it was always automotive. That's always where I wanted to land. Even though we were doing a lot of like team sports stuff when we first started, because we came from that world. So that we were working for the Panthers and the Hurricanes and doing the team sports thing, and which I enjoy. I especially love sports documentary. Like in the team sports world, documentary to me is so exciting because it's I was just talking to my buddy Lucas Harger the other day who owns Outpost, the amazing post house, and Lucas was like, It's one of the best arenas to tell stories because your highs and lows are already built in, So, but we were leaving the team sports world, and I always wanted to work in automotive, so we were doing a lot. I mean, we're in Charlotte, right? So NASCAR work is naturally going to come up, or things related to racing. And I guess the first time I really felt like I was working on something that was exciting, in that sense, was a relationship that we had built over time, turned into an agency relationship as someone bounced around jobs. And Toyota, traditionally hires these massive production companies that do like Sweatpants Media, for example, like insanely talented group of guys and girls that make great films. But this one project, they were like, what if we let these dopes from North Carolina have a shot at it, just through some relationships that we had made on like Eric did an editing project for them. He edited this like doc series for them. It was just those little bits of work that we had proven to them to like give us a chance. And the budget wasn't great, but I was going to go to Daytona and I was going to get in an arm car for the first time. And I was going to shoot a Toyota Supra on track at Daytona, which was, to me, I was like, giggling the whole time. And we got to write it too. The script is, Eric and I 100% wrote that script, and because there were no agency creatives at that agency, they just were there for support. So that was the first time. And I did direct and DP that, which in hindsight would have loved to have.
Sure.
So, some support there. But that was the first time where I was like, okay, like don't fuck this up. And that was my first arm car job, and it was at Daytona. And for non-racing nerds out there, Daytona is a super speedway. It's 2.5 miles long, and the corners are banked more than 45 degrees. So like you can't physically stand at the bottom of the racetrack and walk to the top without like crawling on your hands and knees. It's so steep, or you slide down.
That's tight.
And so I know this. I've been watching NASCAR since I was a kid with my dad, and we get in the arm car, and my stunt driver is a guy named Ely Barda, who's in all these big movies, really successful stunt driver. And he was like, we just need to go test the corners real quick before we bring the picture car out. I was like, test the corners? He goes, well, if we don't go fast enough through the corners, like the arm car is just going to tumble down into the infield. And I was like,
oh yeah, forgot.
Sick. So we
tight.
Leave the pits, and I'm in the back seat, in next to my operator, and he just floors it in this Porsche Cayenne Turbo, and we're going 120 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you just feel your body go, and you're sideways going through the corners of Daytona. And I've been watching race cars do this my entire life, So I had a moment. I had a crazy moment, and so that project was a big deal. And God bless the Filmotechnic guys that were on that, because I think they knew how green I was, especially shooting in that sort of scenario. I think they sniffed me out really quick, but I think that enthusiasm made them go like, okay, we're going to help this dude out. Like, he's a little lost. The lingo's maybe not quite there, There's a guy that works for Film and Technic named Michael Jordan, who is the nicest dude.
I've heard
in
of
the
Michael
world.
Jordan.
Yeah. I don't know if he's from Wilmington.
No, I got him.
Played
Yeah.
some ball. Yeah. Nicest dude in the world. And they like truly, they could tell I knew what I wanted, but I didn't quite know the process. So they held my hand and we made a film that I was super proud of. And I think, that was a big turning point for me because I was like, I thought this is where I wanted to be. I thought this is what I wanted to do. And now I know for sure. Like, I want to be chasing cars around, mixing those with human stories and sort of meshing the two together. So that was the job for sure that changed it.
Congratulations, dude. I mean, you deserve to be pumped on that. I bet that is like a trip. You know, you're on the Daytona Speedway and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I mean,
It's happening.
And like I had lost my dad a couple years before that. And so
sorry to hear
being, it's okay. Being in that space though, and like working in that world meant so much to me because like that was we watched that when I was a kid, right? So he would have died. Like if he knew, like, you know, so that there were so many layers to it. And it meant a ton. Like it was a big turning point. Now, sustaining that long term, obviously so many new challenges that come from being like, yeah, I want to direct car films and car commercials. Like that's a challenge in itself, but that was a big turning point for me for sure.
Amazing, dude.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that happens to every creative, kind of the creative ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
Those happen a lot
Yeah.
as just an individual freelancer, and that happens a lot as a production company owner. So, sorry, it's a bit convoluted.
Just keep me on track and I'll try to answer.
Talk about the creator's mentality, how to be mentally healthy while also chasing the nameless and shapeless desire to create something enough. And how does that also relate as being a production company owner rather than just a freelancer?
Yeah. So for me, it took me a long time to figure this out, but like it's different for everyone, but I need a clean break away from creating or trying to create it. If I'm writing and whether it's going great or it's going poorly, I learned a couple years back that I need a break from that, that I can sort of flip a switch. So for me, that's cycling. I ride bikes, mostly road. I need to, and I learned this from Erica because she's so good at it. Like Erica has this non-negotiable time every day where it's like, okay, it's this time. I don't care how stressed or how busy we are. I'm going to the gym. Like she's an Olympic weightlifter. So that is her like passion. And she can turn that switch off. And I was always like, yeah, but I can keep working on this and, you know, kill myself for 3 more hours on trying to wring my brain out onto a paper. So, learning to take that break was a big jump in my creative process or in my ability to feel refreshed. So like if I go get on the bike for 2 or 3 hours, like you're working so hard, you don't have time to think about that like commercial bid or that treatment you're working on or an edit that's not going great or whatever. So, so yeah, that's the big one for me is for me, it's physical activity and a break from, what can be a pressure-filled situation. So there was a second part to that, wasn't there?
You pretty much answered it. Is okay. How does it change from being a freelancer versus being a production company owner?
Oh, yeah. I mean, on the production company side, it's, you know, I kind of blur those lines between the two. I'm not just a director. Like I still am helping produce sometimes. So it's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. You got to be able to break away from it, whether that's athletics or reading or, you know, it literally doesn't matter. Like, I mean, if you drink beers, it doesn't matter. Like, maybe that's not the most healthy, but like, you got to have that break, right?
Drink beers.
Drink some beers, a couple Coors Lights. No, I am slowly learning that, but I am very far from perfecting it, but at least now I'm aware. So
no, rad. And you've kind of already spoken to this, but also outside of just like physical activity, that's huge. But what outside of filmmaking makes you a better filmmaker?
For me, that's a good question. I'm big on, so I'm super like nostalgic, and I'm a pretty like emotion driven person. So for me, it's been, I'm a better filmmaker because my appreciation of a moment, whether it's current or from my past, I feel like I think about that so much, like when I'm writing or if I'm directing or whatever we're working on, like I find ways to sort of interject that. So like that appreciation of a moment or that feeling of nostalgia, like, so like in my day to day, I try to like take in just moments that I encounter and sort of log them in a way. I think that makes me a better filmmaker, because if it's a feeling or a visual or something, like if I can recall that when I need to on a project potentially, like that only can help me. But also I think digging into my past and the things I've been through, positive, negative, the moments I hold on to from my life or from movies or records that I love or whatever, like that nostalgia, like I'm the type of weirdo that'll watch my same favorite like couple movies and TV shows like every couple, like I just have to keep them in cycle. Just because I it's so familiar and it's like mine almost, even though it's not my art. Like,
yeah, would you call it like like emotional awareness, or perhaps like compartmentalizing those emotions?
I think it's emotional awareness. I think it's recalling how I feel in a moment, how I acted in a moment, how, you know, like I like when I travel. I've got a small handful of places that are so nostalgic to me and so special to me for my own reasons that no one else will understand, that I'm just like fixated on those because of the feelings and the memories. And so I think that bleeds into my work. And I try to make everything I make, especially when I've got, you know, good actors and human characters in my work, which isn't, you know, sometimes it's cars, sometimes it's both, sometimes it's just people, but I try to like, those things affect me emotionally, so I try to interject that when I can into my work, and it's not always possible because you know, it's a lot of commercials and stuff, so it's not always the forum for it. But when I can, that I try to do that, and that's meaningful to me. So I absorb those. Like last week, I got to take a week off, and I felt that continuously happening. I felt myself just ending up in situations where I was able to just stop and be like, okay, I want to absorb this feeling, you know, and it's not just positive feelings, like feelings of anxiety or fear or like struggle that we've all sort of felt, like those are valuable too in what we do. So as much as I work on myself to try to eliminate a lot of those feelings and those sort of things that we all struggle with, I don't forget about them, because that you can create some really great moments with those things. So that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think that emotional recall and giving space to those kinds of feelings, to where you're like, okay, how can I be a sponge? How can I really soak them in, and how can I put them in places where they're supposed to go, is a muscle, right? Like you have to work on that, you know, because like what you said, it's like, how can you put yourself in a scenario where you're like, okay, like here's something that's more black and white, like anxiety or excitement. Yeah, you know,
I want to my favorite films and my favorite TV shows and the things that I'd gravitate towards, my favorite records, it doesn't matter like what type of art, are the ones that I can easily pull those things from. Even if the songwriter had different intentions or the filmmaker had different intentions, it made me feel a way. And that's the best part about art in general, is that we all can take different things from it. But being able to recall those feelings from other people's art, from my life, when people watch my stuff, whether it's a commercial, it doesn't matter. Like if I can get a small feeling that I have felt for my entire life to just come through in a 30-second like car spot, like that feels like a win to me. You know, that's whether, you know, parents and their children or you know, siblings or friends, or just that, those are the things that I find myself gravitating towards, is those feelings that we all have felt. And how can I interject that into something I'm making? So,
yeah, that's beautiful, dude. And then another question, the inverse, what inside filmmaking makes you a better person, makes you a better partner, makes you a better business partner, son, friend?
Man, I want to say it's in the work, but it's not. I think it's just in the friends and the collaborators, and like, I feel like I'm a better partner, I'm a better son, I'm a better friend, probably a lot because of the people that I've encountered in filmmaking. Like it's like no job I've ever had where I'm like actually affected by the people I collaborate with and I work with. Because I've had so many people that have like offered a handout to me and to help when they didn't have to do anything because it's just more work for them, but they did because they saw value in me, or you know, sense of humor, like joking around with people, like I value so much. Like it's made me funnier. It's made me more compassionate. It's made me friendlier, you know, like going back to the bartending days, like I was a sad, angry man, you know, like that job in particular made me hate people just because, you know, some people don't treat wait staff well. And when you're surrounded by that every day, it makes you like cynical. And like, so every encounter I have with a new person, I'm like, this person probably sucks. And that was like, I recognized that. I was like, this is a disgusting way to look at the world.
It also seems that seems like against the grain of your natural disposition.
Yeah, I don't like that. And I wasn't raised to be that way by my parents, and Erica would never let me act. You know what I mean? Like that's not how we operate. So the people that I get to work with in this job have affected me tremendously in a positive way. You know, personally, emotionally, professionally, I feel like I'm a better person because of the people I've surrounded myself with over the last 7-8 years of making films. So,
dude, I love it. I did a little bit of research, texted one of your partners, texted Eric, and I said, hey man, what's something that I should ask Ben about? What do we got? And he told me to ask you about Mr. P's versus Totino's, the pizza wars of 2004.
Yeah, we were in college, bigger, like I'm still really good friends with a lot of my high school friends. I've kept a really close knit group. And so some of us went to UNCW, some of us were at NC State, among other schools here in the state. But there was a heated war over what was the best sub $1 frozen pizza in college because there was no money anywhere. And I was a Totino's guy, 99 cents. Get you a stack, you know, go to the store, get a stack.
Oh, you got a stack?
Get a stack.
For 99 cents?
Well, I had $6, so that's 6 pizzas.
Got it.
So, and then they in Raleigh, the weirdos in Raleigh that went to NC State were big Mr. P's guy because Mr. P's was 59 cents. So there, it was a strictly economic
To them, it was
decision.
all about the cash.
But Mr. P's is not even pizza. Like you would open one out of the pack and they would have just forgot to put the cheese and toppings. So it would just be like sauce bread. And so there was a heated discussion to this day. Every time I'm at Harris Teeter or whatever, I snap a photo of the Totino's. I haven't had one in a long time.
That was going to be my follow question. When was the last time you had one?
This is when you present me with a hot Totino's and we share it as this conversation continues.
It would have been genius.
No, he's wrong, unfortunately, because he's a Mr. P's guy, but I still love him.
Got it. What about, so to you, it's more quality?
It's a quality thing. I'm willing to spend that extra, 41 cents or 40 cents to get the quality of a Totino's.
Yeah, splurge for it.
Oh yeah, it's real pizza.
I got it. Let's say you wanted to bring somebody over to your side, right? And you wanted to convert. What would your selling point be?
I mean, just look at them side by side. Like food is so visual. That alone, the packaging. You should see the fucking font that Mr. P's uses. It's if anyone from Mr. P's is listening to this, I apologize, but no, we were joking. Someone found the box on like a Google search the other day because I don't even know if they make it anymore, and sent it to my group text of all my high school friends, and we were like, who slapped this together? Like we're so fascinated by the brand and how they got to where they were. So.
Dude, have you ever seen a Cookout's Instagram?
No, whenever it sounds fascinating.
Dude, whenever they put like any graphic design up, it's like basically just like clip art, like just thrown in. And I talked to a buddy of mine who is like he's a lecturer of graphic design at NC State, and he's like the Cookout graphic design is flawless. He's like, it should never change. It's perfect. It's right on brand. It hits the demographic. It makes you happy. Amazing. Well, so before we go into our rapid fire segment, I wanted to say, what kind of advice do you have for people? And you have a bit of a different way to look at things, because we could say, what advice do you have for people who are starting out in the industry? What advice do you have for people who are in one area of the industry and want to take a leap from, let's say, DP to director, and let's say even going into starting their own production company?
For people starting out, I would say I am fortunate that I got to do all the jobs, maybe not in a fully professional sense, like on a functioning commercial set, but I got to do everything: writing and producing and directing and shooting and edit, grade, shitty VFX, everything I've done in my career, you know. That to me is so valuable. That's what I would press people to do, to figure out what you do want to do, is to do as much as you can, because once you go, okay, I have fallen in love with this piece of the process, I want to be a gaffer, or I want to be a storyboard artist. It literally doesn't matter where in that process, because then you have context for what everyone else is going through, what they're dealing with. And it's made me a better collaborator in my position in the process, because I've done a lot of these jobs that these guys and girls that we get to hire are doing, you know. It's just walking in other people's shoes, you know, professionally. That's all it is. So I would say do as much as you can, learn as much as you can, go hang out with G&E for a day, you know, like if you can get a PA position or a low paying swing position just to go and follow a good key grip and a gaffer and their guys around for a day, do it. If you can camera PA just to get some camera experience, if you go work in a post house, whatever, like I would do as much as you can, because then when you do know what's for you, you have that context. I feel like that's a super generic answer, but like I think about that every time I'm on an edit session with one of my editors, or with a colorist or VFX, or when I'm on set and I'm speaking to my DP, knowing that that's going to trickle down to camera department. Like I know what those guys and girls are doing and why they're important to the process. So I guess I always want to make sure my requests are reasonable and I understand what it's going to take them to do it. Because we all hear horror stories from our crews and our friends that are like, yeah, I was on this set and they made me do this, and then we didn't even do the shot, and I had hiked a camera a mile up a side of a mountain, and like just I hear these things all the time. It's like, take the 3 seconds and go, this first and second AC are about to do this thing that I need for a shot that I don't even know if we're going to grab it. Like, you know, that stuff makes me cringe. So,
totally. Yeah. You want to be considerate.
Yeah. Second part, as far as transitioning, that's tougher. It depends how far into it you are, but like think at the highest level, like a lot of mega people have changed what they do in the industry. Like Wally Pfister is a director now, you know, like he's shooting the biggest movies in the world and now he's directing. So, I think the transitional part is a little larger scale of like where you're at in your life, and maybe where you're at in your career, in a sense of like what you want to say or what you want to put out in the world. Like for me, I didn't have this super long career as a DP to like walk away from, in a sense. You know, like I just had things I needed to say as a director. And so I was like, it was easier for me. But like our friend John Carrington is a great example. John is a amazing colorist, and that's what he got known as in the industry. Like John could be a colorist for the rest of his career if he wanted to.
He would kill it.
He was killing it. And you know, he could have continued on that path, but he just looked at so much cinematography and knew he had things that he wanted to put on screen in his head. And so he insisted, like, no, I want to be a DP. And he's had to fight that transition way more than I had to, because he was so much more established than me. So the advice would just be, do it earlier.
Okay.
You know, not all of us are Wally Pfister, and we can just be like, hey, I'm an accomplished cinematographer and I can do whatever I want. But, you know, I think John fought that for a long time. I think he to this day, he fights it. But now that people are realizing he's a ridiculously talented DP, it's getting easier and easier to leave it behind. But I was fortunate enough only a handful of years into my career to want to make that change. So I would say try to do it earlier, but you know, that's why doing it all is so valuable, because then you can know, like, man, you know what I hate? G&E or whatever your thing, like, you know, I hate working in that department, but I love camera, or whatever your situation is. Like, learn all that early, so at least you know where you lie. You might get into G&E and be like, these are my people, I want to be in G&E. Great. But learn it early. I knew early on that I hate editing just because I did it all the time in my in-house job, and I don't think I'm very good at it. But it is essential to the process. It is arguably more important than anything I do is what my editors do. So, but I made that distinction early on that it sucked for me and I didn't want to do it, but I still do it a lot. So
Moral of the story is have loosely held convictions on what you do.
I know.
No, that's great advice.
Budgets
for sure.
are a thing sometimes.
Hey, dude, Monty, speaking of cash, you ready for the rapid fire section?
Yeah, I made $21,000 last year. Is that what you're asking?
That's almost pop.
Yeah, I'm
All right, well, close. I'm calling the rapid fire section last looks.
Ooh.
Do you think that's a good idea or a bad idea? We can talk about it later.
Yeah, I don't know. I have some thoughts. I could write them down and get them to you in an email later.
Yeah, if you don't mind. All right. Best movie and most overhyped movie.
Whoa. Well, the best movie of all time is Lost in Translation.
Oh.
In my shitty opinion.
Dope.
That is my favorite movie. Always has been, always will be.
Sick.
Most overhyped movie. Man, the more you do this, and I used to hear people say this, and I was like, oh, that's such a cop-out answer. But like, the more you do this, the more you realize that the fact that someone made a movie, period, is an incredible feat. So like, shitting on movies is so it's so hard to do.
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
I learned that from like we have mutual friends that work on a lot of smaller budget features.
Yeah, totally.
And you know what? They all will say, they're like, we're making a movie. We're making a movie. We're going to go do the act of making a movie. And that is such a colossal undertaking that I can't even fathom because I've never made a feature narrative. It gets harder. I will say I'm not a superhero fan. I think it's oversaturated, but that's just me. A lot of people love that. Clearly they love that shit because everyone's going to see it. So yeah, now when I shit on a movie, I feel dirty because I really do because I have so much respect for people that can just do it, like can get it done.
Tight.
Unreal.
Hey man.
Unreal.
Well said. Best camera, worst camera.
Best camera is the one I feel comfortable with. Like if I'm shooting, because I think cameras are, again, not a cop-out answer, I swear. But cameras to me, there's a lot of like feel to them and what you can do when you're shooting or what you're doing with them on the back end.
Totally.
And some of them just speak to me better than others. Like I remember when I switched digital stills cameras, when I bought my first Leica, it took me a long time to like really find that sweet spot, you know? Post-processing, exposing, whatever. Like it just, I don't know. I'd been shooting Canon and Sony and Fuji for so long. It just took a while. So to me, it's, I think different cameras speak to different people in the way that their brain sees something in real life and goes, all right, we're going to shoot this.
Yeah.
I know where this needs to sit. Like I remember this thing, we were just joking about your FS7. That was the camera that taught me like how to, even though it's not the best tool in its sort of world, once I found like where it wanted to live, like
the sweet spot,
that was what taught me so much about cameras. So obviously Alexa 35 is so dope, but people way more talented than me have made way better shit than I can make with way dumpier cameras. So I'm not picky on that stuff. I like lenses a lot more. But best camera, the one that you know how to work with, the one that, like where to expose it, where you can push it, where you can't. The worst camera, I mean, you know, Eric and I had a Panasonic P2 back in the day.
Dude, the P2s.
We had a P2 before we got DSLRs.
Yeah, man, like the HVXs.
Yeah, I mean,
let's go.
It was. Now it would probably get used as like a B cam for like a throwback piece in a commercial.
You throw a fisheye on that bad boy, and you're skating.
See, I didn't skate
and or dying.
I didn't
for
skate,
sure.
so anyone that skated probably has an affection for those, but I don't skate, so you could probably find incredible amount of value in that camera that we couldn't. So.
Dude, big shouts to the P2 life. Best lenses, worst lenses.
Oh, I mean, I'm a sucker for character, and I've taken it too far on jobs where the client's like, "This is really fucked up looking. Why does it look that way? Can we change it?"
It looks broken.
I'm like, "Oh, we can't change it." No, I mean, again, it's a situational choice, but I will reach for character when it's allowed and appropriate on the project.
Yeah.
Like John Carrington and I shot this set of Todd AO anamorphics on a little short film we did for Toyota like maybe 2 years ago, and they were wild for like night exteriors and stuff. Like so cool.
Yeah, I remember those lenses.
Yeah, for us. Were you on that job?
Yeah, I pulled for them.
At Richmond?
No, not in Richmond. We did the pickups.
Oh, we did pickups.
Yeah,
in Charlotte.
we did pickups in Charlotte. Yeah,
such a cool set.
They were sick.
And for like a good price too. Like, because the Hawks are way more expensive, so it's something sort of in that world where you get a ton of character that is pleasing, because some anamorphics can be a little heavy. But yeah, those were super dope. Least favorite lenses, you know, I know it's super generic, but like a lot of just anything that's sharp and clean, like really sharp, really clean photo lenses, I just wouldn't reach for them. They have a purpose. But I just like stuff that's bloomy and weird and has imperfections and it's soft, and you know. But then also I would be happy to get out a set of master primes or master anamorphics and shoot something really sharp if it made sense for the project. So I lean towards character. If it's got cool character and it makes sense for the project and the client will not freak out on your heavy character lens choice, then I'm going that way every time. So I love anamorphic too. I'm a sucker for, I don't know, I see in that aspect ratio more so, like when I'm building treatments and stuff, I'll like not even think about it, and I'll be like, shit, every image I pulled is 239. And they're gonna be like, this is like, I know it's a 16:9 project, but
we'll just crop in or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll
that's
shoot
just,
open gate. Who cares?
That's just me.
I feel like, whenever I feel like I'm like above shallow depth and anamorphic, it just sucks me right back in, dude.
It does. But also, like, we shot a set of the Hawk V-Lights on my Lexus spot, and Rob Russell, he shot them like at a 4 or a 5.6 or something the whole time,
ruled.
and they ruled. And I'm so used to a lot of stuff that you have to shoot wide open, and so he was like, "Oh, no way!" Like, and he was telling me this, and I was like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, trust me." And he was, I mean, he would know. He's a
sweet
DP.
spot lenses, man.
Yeah, so he knew. So, but still, like a shitload of character and really, really fun. So
sick, dude. Favorite crew member?
Like an individual or
like a person?
Position? Oh, I mean,
who do you want on every set?
Oh, Jono for sure.
Jono, dude. They're our vegan warrior.
No. Jono is way up there. No, I don't know. I mean, there's so many great people that we've worked with all over the country. You know, I guess if I had to pick a person that's there on every set, and I only say this because this person was one of the first people in my like commercial filmmaking journey that knew I was a fraud and didn't tell anyone, and invested in me and whatnot when they knew I was clueless. And that's Raymond Benthal.
Dude.
Raymond Benthal, because like I remember one of the first commercials we ever did where I was shooting it, and like Eric and I were like kind of co-directing it, and I was like, we're gonna hire a gaffer. Don't really know what that does, but we're gonna get one. Oh my God.
dude. Let's go.
This is so long ago, and I was, in hindsight, I thought about this at some point, and I was so embarrassed. But then I was like, this dude came to set with no budget, and clearly he probably walked in and went, "Fuck," and never gave me the tiniest inkling of. Never made me feel embarrassed because I was inexperienced or really green, because I knew what I wanted, and the spot came out great for where I was at that point in my career. But like, he just never made me feel stupid and taught me without making it condescending or anything, you know? And then the next time we called him, he came back. Like, and because he got his day rate, sure, he got his day rate and he got some gear on it or whatever. So, but like, I just will never forget that. So having him there, even now where it's like things have grown a little bit, you know, and I feel a little less like I'm clueless. I'm still super clueless on a lot of things, but I feel less clueless than I did that day 6 years or 7 years ago, whatever it was. Like that stuck with me forever. So even if he's not gaffing it, I would love to have him just hanging out, you know, just doing his little, like, just walking around, like, just because he'll come up behind you, like at the monitor, and you're like, "How's it going, brother?" And I'll be like, "Oh," even if it's going shit, I'm immediately like, "Oh, it's good, man."
Pretty good now.
Yeah, I
Pretty
love
good
that
now.
dude.
Dude, Ray, Ray rips.
Yeah,
big fan of that dude. Least favorite crew member?
Yeah, definitely Jono.
Yeah.
No.
The man is just fluid.
Least favorite crew member. Oh my God.
Yeah, who's the last person you want on set?
How many like work relationships are you planning on straining with this podcast?
Hopefully 0. I'm under the impression that everybody's fully aware of it. You know, but also, I mean, you know, Jono, I've got an answer, right? I know who my least favorite person is.
Tell
on set.
me.
I can't. Maybe if I ever get interviewed on this show.
Yeah. Can I host your interview?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. No, we are very fortunate, especially in this market, because I have worked in other markets where I'm like, you know, we might be small, but excuse me, we can get a lot of shit done. So I did 2 commercials back to back. I'm not going to shit on a person, but I will say, like, in a huge market, we did a commercial with a big night exterior, and Grip and Electric wanted 25 guys, you know, and a lot of prep.
It's a party.
And a lot of stuff. And it was tough for Erica and Eric to navigate that. Whereas I saw Corey Skipper and 6 dudes do a bigger night exterior, like a couple weeks before that, and not complain once. But also, like, we were like, what do you need? It's not like we were like, Corey, you get 6 guys, like, good luck. He was like, no, we got this. Like,
dude, Skipper and, like, yeah, a lot of the G&E is just, they're just bulletproof, dude. Yeah, man, so they are awesome people. My least favorite crew member would just be anyone that, because I don't want to take tools away from people. I don't want to take people's tools away that they need to do their jobs, or the manpower that they need to do their jobs. Like, that's not how I want to operate as director, as my production company. I don't want that. That's not how we like to operate. But it's just people that can't understand where everyone is coming from, because we're all usually, at least in my jobs, we're in a similar situation. Yeah. Like, if there's no budget, I'm feeling it. You're feeling it. Everyone's feeling it. So just be considerate.
We're all making sacrifices in some areas, like not on like safety or anything, but just like, oh yeah, you know, we can't do this. Like, so I'm not gonna call a person out, but I like being able to communicate to my crews.
Totally.
This is where we're living, like, production company and director wise. If you can get on board with us, like, and I'm not talking like taking money out of your pocket, but just like the mentality.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't like
it's great.
Shitting on out of town people, but I will give mad props to the Corey Skippers of the world when they can, you know.
Yeah, dude.
Huge. When John Carrington throws a big night exterior at you and you don't even blink an eye and go,
they say,
I got this.
Yeah, brother, let's get it.
Yep.
What's your hottest take in the industry?
Hottest take in the industry. Oh man. It's so hard to do it and not like sound
Trash
like you're
the homies.
shitting
Yeah.
on people. No, hottest take
Yeah.
is I think in my small world of automotive and you know racing and things like that, like so many people are really 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 good at making amazing action sequences, driving footage. Like if you got a killer, you know, if you can afford Source Sound to do your sound design, and if you've got all the tools, and there's a lot of films that come out that are a driving footage like masterclass, but we're lacking story sometimes. We're lacking emotion. We're lacking the ability to create those sort of things. And so the directors that I look up to and love are masters of that. And I think no one's ever going to watch my films and go like, whoa, that driving footage was the best I've ever seen, or the most intense, the most perfectly executed. Like, but I just hope that they would say, oh, but there was a laugh, or there was an emotion that I was able to take away from it. So I think hot take would just be, a lot of people are getting really good at that part of it, like so much better than I'll ever be.
Yeah.
But sometimes I find myself wanting something. So that's just could be a personal preference thing. But
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call. Like focus a little bit more on the feeling.
I want to mix those two worlds. Yeah. That's what I try to do in my work. I don't know if it's apparent, but
Oh, it's apparent. You kill it. And then finally, what's your longest day on set?
without throwing anyone under the bus, I DP'd a commercial that went longest day. Probably, I think we were touching 17 and a half to 18 hours.
Sheesh. Party.
Yeah, whatever the opposite of a party is. I feel like that's, and it was a lot of, it was a lot of people's faults that were not the people directly hiring me, you know, client stuff,
Yeah, sure.
agency stuff, whatever. So, but it was a brutal one. So, again, learned so much though. Like we won't do that. We won't do that on our sets without trying to take care of people. And so
Y'all do.
It's an attempt. It gets tougher as time goes on. It gets tough because when people are combing through your budgets and being like, oh, well, no, we want to pay a key grip, you know, $680 day rate. And you're like, oh, could just, you know, in this market, keys are $750 or whatever the keys rate is. And then when the ad agency or the brand actually gets to go through your budget and go, yeah, but you need to change that to $680. That's the budget for a key grip. And you're like, okay, like that's the world that we're slowly stepping into, where like every rate is scrutinized. And so
Yeah. Well, Ben,
yeah.
you and the Whatnots are our favorite production company, period.
How did that happen?
Hey, dude, I don't know. The LaCroix on set are ever flowing.
I don't even drink them. That's the best part.
Dude, yeah.
Eric insists. I think it's because Eric's like, no, there's LaCroix, 100%.
I've got to a point where I'm trying to like knock him out. Like I was on a set the other day. I told the first, I was like, or I told the second, I was like, hey, I'm going to drink 8 LaCroix today.
Oh,
Like keep me up, you know? I think I hit 7. I didn't hit 8, but
how did you not feel like you were going to die?
I don't know. I just kept going. I just 10-1x9, you know what I mean?
I can't drink 3/4 of one of those without feeling like I'm going to explode. Like
Really?
it just sits right here. Like
Oh,
I don't
no,
know.
dude.
But I can drink like I can drink soda or like beer or sparkling wine or like other carbonated beverages. But for some reason, it just like I have half one of those and I'm in a sad place. I don't know if my body's just not good at processing compressed air or whatever it might be, but that's a feat. I would be on the ground if I drank even half what you drank.
Wow. I mean, thank you.
Yeah, that's
I appreciate that.
unbelievable. No, I'll let him know that everyone appreciates his seltzer choice on set, because we don't let him get the Walmart stuff because it's, you know, it's crap.
He goes too crazy.
People don't appreciate that. They want the real deal. So
It's true.
all you LaCroix fiends out there,
Me and the homies.
I'm a weirdo. Hey,
Dude, thank you. That was great.
no, we're not high-fiving. We're
Yeah.
just grabbing.
Yeah, that's all we're doing.